Everybody doing tonight? Tonight we're going to have a special guest. He's close to. He went to college right down the road from where I'm at. He's also fishing all 9 of the Bassmaster Opens. Um, Mr. Kyle Patrick. He's an aspiring elite angler, and I think he's going to do well this year. Got a couple tournaments close to him and us, so I'm going to welcome in Kyle. He's a nice local guy, so let's treat him nice and let's get some questions for him. He's gonna be talking about how he prepares for tournaments, multi-day tournaments such as the Opens.
John, appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Hey, not a problem, man. Thanks for coming on.
Dude, I hope people treat me nice,
yeah. Yeah. If not, we'll kick in the curb.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right, man. So Kyle, let's start a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into why you decided to throw yourself into the Opens with everybody, that all 700,000 people that want to fish them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I grew up. Well, I like to say I grew up. I technically grew up in Massachusetts, but I grew up in a small town called Cooperstown, New York. Actually, Baseball Hall of Fame's there for those of you that don't know Cooperstown by name. Grew up fishing on Seagull Lake, which is the lake that is right, like, it's in Cooperstown, but it goes out to Springfield and all that. But yeah, I grew up there. Basically found fishing because my grandmother had a dock on the lake, and when I was like 7, I would take a hand line and I'd find a frog or something in the woods, and then I'd throw it under the dock and catch like the same 2-pound bass over and over again. So I forget what I named it. I probably named it something, but and then it just grew from there. Because I summered in New York, we have so many amazing fisheries around us. So, exploring all those New York lakes with time was something that I really enjoyed. And I bought my first bass boat when I was 15. It was like a small bass tracker. And I took my mom's Honda Pilot with 170,000 miles on it and just drove all around, entering small local tournaments that were super exciting for me because, that's the first tournaments I ever fished. And I just traveled around, and when I started, my mom would drive me to tournaments and drop me off and then leave the trailer and drive back. And then when I was 16 and a half, I think it is, I would do it on my own. But yeah, New York was a really great place for me to find bass fishing because of how unbelievable our lakes are. And as you know, living next to Cayuga, like one of the best largemouth lakes in the country. And I know people will say that, it's not one of the best largemouth lakes in the country, but I truly believe it is. If not, maybe not the best largemouth lake, but the best bass fishing lake. And I'm pretty sure it was voted on Bassmaster as one of them.
Yeah.
But
and I think New York's probably in the top 5, if not higher, as the #1 bass fishing state.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many, and then people see St. Lawrence River, Cayuga, Champlain, Oneida, but what they don't see is all of the lakes, like Onondaga, like all these local lakes that are, 15 miles or shorter that, don't get as much publicity. Those are where you're really going to find the big bags. Like, what's that one lake everyone's been catching giant bags out of? It's like Silver Lake.
Keuka or Canisius?
I think it's Silver Lake. Like, I saw like a bunch of 25, 26 plus pound bags come out of there this year. And it's just like, it's really not, it's surprising, but it isn't, because of how, well New York State, how great of a fisheries are in New York State.
It's crazy.
It is.
Yeah. So if you want to talk a little bit about how you prepare for a tournament, I mean, I don't know if you want to go back to where it all starts, registration or not, or you just take over, and I'll ask some questions when they come in.
All right. Yeah. So, I'm not like a 40-year-old veteran bass fisherman yet. I will be at some point, but I've done a lot of traveling for bass fishing tournaments, not necessarily the open because I've only fished, 9 all last year, but prior I would love to explore. So I would go to Florida. Like I went to Florida for the Bassmaster Team Championship down at the Harris Chain. It was a multi-day tournament that we drove down for. So I've got a decent experience with it. And I think the first, where you really want to start, you're in the tournament, forget registration, you're in the tournament. I think the biggest thing that you got to do is preparing tackle, your boat, your car, your truck, all of that. That's the first thing. So like say you're a month out from traveling, like you can't do everything a week before, or at least I don't like to. Like I want to make sure, depending on what your setup is for your rig, trailer, boat, truck, however you like to tow it, make sure that all your, I's are dotted, everything, like everything's straight. Because I've had, when I have my nitro, I've had plenty of roadside issues in the middle of rural Tennessee where I have to pull over to the side, and that's no fun. You just want to avoid it at all costs. And people like to forget about maintenance when it comes to, your truck, or your truck's a little bit easier, but boat, trailer, a lot of times people just, blanks them like, I greased the hubs, 5 months ago, I should be fine. No, make sure everything is perfect, because the last thing you want is to be driving out thinking you're going to practice, your day one of practice is tomorrow, and then it gets pushed back a day because of mechanical issues on the road. Like, I mean, everyone says it, everyone knows it, but I think a lot of times it's forgotten. And that's something that I like to do just to get out of the way so I can focus on tackle. So that's step one for me. And step two, as most guys who fish like we do know, we all have way too much tackle. I mean, we all have just way too much tackle, whether it's in our boat, in our truck, in our rooms, wherever. So I study. That's step one to, how I prepare with, tackle organization is I do a lot of studying. We all have the internet. We all know how to use it somewhat, some more than others, I'm sure. But make sure you're researching. So for right now, I got Kissimmee chain on my mind. I've already been researching a ton. I haven't been there. I fished in Florida quite a bit, but I haven't been there. So I research what time of year. I mean, you can never get it perfect because everything's changing so much day to day. But like, try to get a sense of what you're going to need. Like if you're going to the St. Lawrence River, you're going to pack very differently than if you're going to Kissimmee chain, obviously. So just make sure your ducks are in order there as far as tackle, because a lot of people tend to, maybe pack too light or pack way too much, because you don't want a ton of a ton of tackle in your boat, because it can get confusing. You want to stay organized on the water, even during practice. Like, at least for me, like when I see guys that have, they open up their compartment, it's a complete mess. Like that freaks me out. Like I can't do that because for me as a tournament angler and like truly trying to make it, every second is everything. And that's a cliche saying, but it's true. I want my tackle perfectly organized. So, before I go, I will put the tackle in my boat that I think I will need, for day one of practice. So a lot of experimenting, but, reasonable experimenting, calculated experimenting, you could say. And then I have in my truck, I, have it super organized where I have a bunch of bins with labels on them, and I pack my tackle that, I think I may need, like, extra tungsten or extra trick worms or extra, rage tails, whatever it may be. And I make sure that I have enough of them just in case, say, practice, you're hammering them and you're going through plastics. It's just good to have your inventory. You could say inventory in your truck, so it's not getting in your way in the boat. Like that's my biggest thing. You prep at home before you leave so that you're not dealing with any organization issues when you're down, when it's business. Yeah, I mean and then you can get into like the rod deal, but that's sort of the overall mindset I like to have, is staying organized, and any way you can save time in the future, in the 2-3 weeks that you're down there. I like to get to Bassmaster Open tournaments 10 days in advance, and that's moving on to a different sort of topic with the multi-day tournament. But as far as getting ready for that, that's sort of what I do, is I make sure everything's organized, everything's in line. Whether you're going to sleep in your truck or an Airbnb, you can prep differently,
Right.
but that's sort of what I try to do.
So do you have a list that you work with? Like with me, I have a packing list.
Yeah.
Like pillow, blanket, medicine, tackle, rods. You'd be surprised how many things you miss if you're not organized.
Yeah. No, yeah, I do. I have one on my phone that, I mean, I do it so often now that I've sort of, I have a list, but I'll go off it occasionally. But I have a list of essentials, like absolute essentials, like toothbrush. The amount of times that I buy a toothbrush on the road, and that's money that I can save. And I know $2 isn't that much, but it is if you're doing it, every time you travel to anywhere. It can be, it all adds up. So that's the other thing that I forgot to mention. Like your prep, as far as food, as far as drinks, as far as all that stuff, that saves you money. Like I go to Costco with a cooler and bags, and I get my food all prepped before I leave, because every time you go out to dinner, lunch, breakfast, I mean, we're not going out to breakfast and lunch because we're on the water, but you're spending money that you can save. Like $15 at Outback Steakhouse equals 50 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches bought from the store. That's how I look at it, and it's not like eating like that every day isn't ideal, but if it saves you money and allows you to, pay your deposit for the next tournament, that's a no-brainer, So that's the other aspect, is like staying organized equals saving money. And that's what we're all after as tournament anyways. So.
Yeah, cool. I just want to say hi to a couple people, Mr. Kenneth Bassler and Jeremy May. Jeremy's down in Virginia, and I think Kenneth might be in Buffalo or Ohio or Michigan. But yeah, so now you talked about whether it's an Airbnb or your truck.
Yeah.
Do you pack different for each of them, or is it the same?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely pack differently because, with the assumption that I'm sleeping in my truck, that equals far less room for me to pack. So, and when I sleep in my truck, I don't have like a Lear, like I don't have a camp thing on top with a bed, or like I have a couple, like my buddy Chad Smith, he has a sweet setup where he has a bed with, he has the pull-out drawers underneath the bed for organization. But I sleep either in the back, like just like the back seat, or I lean my recliner all the way back. So yeah, I definitely pack differently with Airbnb, especially if you split it with a bunch of people. It's very cheap. Like it can come out to be like, $20 a night sometimes when you split it up. So yeah, they provide a bed, pillows, whatever, but it definitely varies. But I think, if I can get an Airbnb, it's ideal at a cost that I'm willing to pay. It's super ideal. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we prefer the Airbnb ourselves.
Yeah.
Because you don't really have to go out to eat.
Exactly. Well, that's the other thing that people don't factor in, is people say, oh, well, and an Airbnb is so much money as opposed to sleeping in your truck. That's true. But can you cook breakfast and dinner in your truck? And can you make food, and can you keep food? So if you're staying in your truck, you have to be buying ice for your cooler. You have to have enough space for all your stuff. So it is really like, if you sit down, like I was telling you before the show, like when I sat down this year before signing up for all 9 and did, my rough financials behind what's going to happen this year. And it's not pretty. I won't even go into details with that because it's not pretty, but you want to try to be as efficient financially as possible. And I think an Airbnb really helps as far as, saving money in weird ways that you wouldn't really think about saving. Because you have, exactly. And also the boat charging thing. I mean, people forget, like, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to sleep in my truck. Yeah, you have to get a campground, which is still like $20 a night.
Yep.
So it's all.
So for another 30 or 40, you got a comfortable bed to sleep in.
Free charging. Saving money every night, not going out to dinner. So it all.
And not to mention the camaraderie you get there.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, we've had it rough. We had an Airbnb right on Oneida on the river.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was sweet, man. And we were 5 minutes away from the launch.
Yeah.
So it's nice. You get 6 or 7 guys or however many, and you take turns cooking.
Yeah.
Or if you find somebody who's a good cook, you figure out a way to have them cook for you or something like that.
Cook every night.
Yeah.
In return for a waypoint.
Right. So do you do a lot of map study prior to, or you just wing it?
Yeah, no, I do. I'm a big map guy. I do a lot of studying of the lake contours, as simple as right now. I'm on Google Earth. I'm looking at Toho, Kissimmee, Tiger. Like, I'm looking at all the lakes in the Kissimmee chain, just to get the juices flowing. Like, people think, like, for me at least, studying like that it's a mix of, like, I definitely want to find good areas, but I also just want to get fired up for the event, and I want to get my thoughts going about what I'm going to do, how I'm going to start, because when you're going for a multi-day event at a lake you haven't been to, on a lake of that size, because Kissimmee Chain's huge, you have to really be wise with your time, and that map studying eliminates, or sometimes can, cut down on how much you have to explore. And that's sort of segues perfectly into, when I get down to Kissimmee, what I do as far as eliminating water, because the minute I get there, I have waypoints that I use. I use Active Captain. I transfer it to my Garmin's of, my certain waypoint, how I manage it, put it on the screen, just so I have an idea.
Can you give us a couple of them right now, just for an example?
What, waypoints?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give them gladly. I just found them on Google Earth.
I do the same thing with St. Lawrence and Oneida.
Yeah, you just look. You just sort of pan around and look, because like I said, when you get there, it can be daunting if you haven't seen everything. I mean, it's daunting regardless. It's such a big body of water, but at least if you've studied it enough to where you can picture where you are in your boat based on what you've seen from above, like on Google Earth, it really helps it helps you understand, like, where you are in relation to everything else, which is really important for finding fish, because if you understand what Kissimmee looks like, and you're in Toho and you're finding a certain contour line or grass bed or something, you can relate it sometimes and sort of think about where it could be in Kissimmee, and then that might help you find that same structure or contour or whatever it is faster. So that's again, it all comes down to efficiency.
Yeah. So yeah, it's always nice to eliminate water before you get there.
Exactly.
Especially something of that size,
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's super simple. Like, if you're looking at a lake or a chain of lakes, in this case, if we're talking about Kissimmee, but you look at Kissimmee and you can go right ahead and be like, all right, I'm not going to that lake. That's a 2.5-hour run with a lock with a 5-mile-an-hour zone. And that's the other thing, is you can research what's 5-mile-an-hour zones. You can sort of get an understanding, like, okay, I'm cutting that out. So the 3 lakes that I'm going to be, at least to start looking in, is Toho, in the one lake between Toho. I think it's Tiger. I forget what the name of it. And then Kissimmee. Like those three is what I'm focusing on. And not to say that I am or am not necessarily, but that's how Google Earth can really help you just immediately eliminate, a fourth of the lake or whatever it may be.
Okay. Do you use YouTube at all?
I do.
Okay.
I personally think the best fishermen in the world still use YouTube.
Yeah.
And maybe not, but YouTube's such a helpful tool. And if you're allowed to use YouTube prior to your tournament, you should. Not saying that it's going to, like I said, give you the keys to winning an event or top 10ing or top 40ing, but like YouTube is helpful for me in this case because I've never been to Kissimmee. I want to see what people are doing, what people have done. I watched the FLW series there in, I forget, 2018, 2019. Buddy Gross won that, I think, or was very close. But I watched that fully through. I listened to podcasts. So I listened to, a podcast that MLF did on it. I do everything I can, John. Because that's the thing. If I'm not, someone else is, and I don't want them to have any advantage over me at all.
Yeah, I mean it's bad enough you have the disadvantage of being so far away, not being able to go there.
Yeah, and that's why. Yeah, it's very our industry. I mean, the sport of fishing is so competitive these days. Like I just try to take every single advantage I can, because who knows, someone could have done it and I may not have, and it could win them the event. So I don't want to have any setbacks, I guess you could say, but like disadvantage.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna put a statement up here from Kyle or Don Hogue. Kyle, I know you can catch largemouth, no problem. Are you ready for the small local tournaments? He always went for largemouth.
So wait, what did he say? I know you caught him. Are you ready for this? So I forget, is he asking about small, like whether I'm ready to fish smallmouth tournaments?
Yeah.
Smallmouth, I am not, and this is known. I'm glad Don Hogue asked that question. Don Hogue's a good guy. He actually was one of that club, Susquehanna Bass Association. Just quickly before I answer Don's question, that was the club that got me into fishing. So when I was a kid, like I was telling you, I'd be fishing on the docks and I would watch every Sunday morning. I didn't know about, fishing tournaments. I'd watch. And when I heard boats going down the lake early in the morning, I'd get up and watch. And then I'd go to the weigh-in and ask all the guys like, hey, like, what are you using? Blah, blah, blah. So like that Don Hogue's a part of Susquehanna Bass.
All right.
He's chirping me because smallmouth has never been my strong suit. I can catch them, but I can't find them like I can largemouth. And honestly, that comes from just me always loving largemouth and not really pushing myself further in that sort of smallmouth, area. Don't get me wrong. Like if I have to fish for smallmouth at Oneida, I will, and I will practice for smallmouth. But there hasn't been a tournament yet that I've fished as a pro that I've needed to catch smallmouth in, because I've only fished, I fished BFLs in Cayuga. I fished a lot of opens in New York on, Keuka, Cayuga, Seneca, wherever. But you can win all those events with largemouth for the most part. And, I think the last open I fished as a co was St. Lawrence, and I actually beat my smallmouth PB. So I was like, maybe I am decent. I think I caught like a 6'10" or something.
Yeah, come on. Hey, come on up. I mean, we can go smallmouth fishing anywhere here.
Oh, I'd love to. And here's the thing is I have all the technology for it too. Like I just don't apply myself to smallmouth as much as I should. And I will say that this schedule upcoming sets up for largemouth. It does, other than Oneida, it really does. If you look at the schedule, like
actually, Oneida it could be a largemouth.
Exactly, but I'm just saying, like as far as tournaments this year that could be won with smallmouth, I think it's Oneida and Cherokee.
Yeah.
Am I
Well,
missing any?
I don't know about Cherokee though. I think
No, I
that's gonna
know
be
that
large.
again. That's an iffy one, but I'm just saying it
Yeah.
could be. Those are the
Right.
two that could be one with smallmouth. The rest are largemouth there.
Yeah.
I think if I'm missing something.
No, you and I are thinking along. So hey, we both can't be wrong.
Right, because it's Ross Barnett, Red River, Sam Rayburn, Kissimmee Chain, Cherokee Lake. Lake Hartwell is a spotted bass deal, and they act, kind of like smallmouth. James River, Oneida, and Upper Chesapeake. So but to answer his question, yeah, I mean, I'm getting better with it every day. I have Mega 360. I have Live Scope. Like I have the tools to get good at smallmouth fishing. But I guess I've just never really had to fish for smallmouth other than locally. And when I do have to and I don't, I get smoked and I lose.
What's the old saying? Fish your strength.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's true. To a certain extent, though. To a certain extent.
Yeah. There's a difference between fishing your strength and being stubborn and losing.
Exactly. which everyone's done. Everyone's been stubborn and lost.
Yeah.
And sometimes those tournaments are super key in your learning because you think, damn, like I can't just keep doing this and losing. There's just I'll have to expand, and that's really helped me, I think, a lot. We can go into the carnival stuff, but fishing as a co really taught me a lot, and I'm thankful that my buddy made me do it because it was a great learning experience as far as expanding your understanding of how other people, because you can learn anything from anyone. In fishing, there's no
whether it can be good and bad.
Yep, exactly. And even if it's all bad, you're still learning because you're not going to do what they're doing.
Hopefully,
exactly.
Yeah. But it's and I think that's the thing. One of the things I like about fishing is, we just talked about it could be this and it could be that, but you don't know until the time comes.
Exactly, and that's what's so hard, John, about prepping for a tournament is people say, like I said, don't overpack, but sometimes it's impossible because you just don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I forgot. So when you go to Florida, are you going to do you foresee bringing stuff they would typically use for smallmouth?
Yeah, I think I'll bring spinning rods. I can't say I'm not going to bring spinning rods because you never know what you're going to encounter, but I will have that's the other thing. I will bring 25 casting rods and I'll bring 5 spinning rods. It's going to be casting rod heavy, but I'm going to have I'll definitely experiment with a power shot if I have to. It just depends. It just depends, but I'll bring spinning rods just in case.
Yeah.
You're gonna
you might need that June bugs Senko.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and if I need to fish it weightless, wacky, or whatever it may be, I'll have the equipment. But yeah, I mean, I won't pack like I was going to Oneida. And Oneida would be, pretty much 50-50 spinning.
Yeah. So you don't foresee using 6-pound fluorocarbon with a drop shot?
No, because the minute I switch to 6-pound fluorocarbon, I'm going to hook an 11-pounder, and it's going to jump and it's going to snap me, and I'm going to cry. I'm going to absolutely cry. It just can't happen.
Yeah. So preparation is the key for that, right?
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about map study, using the internet, YouTube, and stuff like that. You mentioned podcasts. Is there anything that, like doc talk? Do you talk to your friends? I know you got some friends in the industry and stuff like that. Do you guys throw things back and forth?
All the time.
Prior to going down there?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay.
I talk to my buddies all the time about, prior stuff, whether they've been there. Like my buddy Tommy Williams, I talk to him all the time about, because he's a super experienced dude. Like he's been in the industry for a super long time, fished all these lakes. So he, I'll bounce stuff off him. He'll bounce stuff off me. I ask him a ton of questions. It's a really good thing to build strong relationships in this industry. It's priceless. Like you cannot put a price on being an honest guy. When it comes, and this brings me into sharing info and all that stuff, but I'll just say, like, having a good group of guys, or it could be 10 guys, it could be 20 guys. When you get above that, it gets a lot, but like being known as someone people can trust and won't screw you over for information. Like if someone says to me, yo, will you share info with me on this body of water? If I won't say yes unless I actually am going to, because there are a lot of guys that, pretend like they're going to, be your best friend. And then when the time comes for them to give back or something, they won't reciprocate. And then that gives you, so I think it's a great question, because that brings me to this sort of, point is having a group of people, whether you travel with them or not, that you can trust, talk with, is huge, because you all bring something different to the table and you all want the same thing. Everyone wants to make the elites or do well in a fishing tournament. And you're not necessarily sharing waypoints, but you're throwing someone a bone here and there, like, look for milfoil, or, look for, reeds in a foot and a half of water, or whatever it may be. It's just good to have that, core group or people that you trust. That's a big thing. So to answer your question, absolutely, I do talk with my friend group and sort of discuss things over, for sure.
Yeah. Now you said you don't share waypoints, but you pretty much give tips and stuff like that.
No, I mean,
I'm fishing like 15 feet, and this is what's going on. I'm on the backside of the rock.
I think there's a lot of that, but I'm not going to say I don't share waypoints, because if someone's like, hey man, like, say someone's helped me out, it just depends on where you're at with the whole, the dynamic. Like if someone helped me a ton, I'm going to say, dude, I got you. Like, check this waypoint. If it's good, let me know. A. B, we'll work out. If you find them really good, then come tournament time, we'll have just a discussion, because if I'm telling someone my waypoints, I'm trusting that come tournament day, if I'm like, hey bro, I'm going there first, they're going to respect that and not touch it. I'll be like, you can come in after you go to your first spot if there's nothing there, but let me just have first dibs at it. That's fine. Yeah. And they respect that. So I think sharing waypoints can get tricky, especially if you are giving them away, like,
candy.
Yeah, candy, exactly.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, I you talk about things and you don't really share waypoints, but you never know how close you are, what your deal is. Like you look at the Johnston brothers. The Johnston brothers split all cash, or they used to split earnings. They used to share waypoints down to a T. So that worked for them. But you never know what the relationship's like or how that's going to go. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the main thing there is trust.
Right.
Right. Like you said, you and Tommy Williams. You guys have that bond, that trust, and that's one thing. But some guy off the street calling and saying, "Hey, are you familiar with this?" then you're like,
"Yeah, it's
well."
I mean, I've met a lot of nice people, but that's the other thing too. Is like there's a fine line between being like, basically like, I don't want to talk to you, and sort of, giving someone a little bit of something just to have a conversation about, because you never know, they might be a really good friend of yours down the line. So you never want to, like, at least for me, I never want to like come across as a, the ass, but I don't want to, be spilling the beans on everything. There's a fine line there. And especially because I don't want to be the guy to, like, I never want to lead someone astray. Like, I don't want to, and not that anyone comes to me for information necessarily anyway. who knows? Like, it's not like I'm Kevin Van Dam, but like if someone were to ask me, I would straight up tell them, dude, I'm on some good stuff, but you know, I respect you as an angler, but I'm just, it's super, super specific areas. So, and when you say super specific areas, they'll get the hint not to push, in my opinion. Like if I were to ask you what you were doing on Cayuga and you were like, yeah, man, it's super specific, I'm throwing this, then I'd just leave it at that. I wouldn't ask you anymore, because you have to also respect that person's sort of privacy to that, because it seems ridiculous, but I mean, it's a pretty cutthroat deal when you're on the when you're fishing the opens. Everyone wants to beat you. No one wants to, you know, give away anything. So it's a tricky line, but
yeah. So Daniel Kenny says he's looking forward to following you in the 2022 season.
Awesome, Daniel. Yeah, I talked with him earlier today.
Great guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I spoke with him briefly about the fishing show he does in New England. I forget where it is. Do you know where it is?
It's in I want to say Leicester, Mass.
Okay.
It's in Mass.
Yeah, it's in Mass, and he deals Douglas rods, which is one of my main sponsors. They're a great rod, and they're going into the 2022 season with me. So super appreciative of that, and I'm glad that he is finding success selling those. And hopefully, I can get out to that show. I hear he was telling me about it. I've never been, but I think it's worth checking out for those of you guys that are tuning in.
Yeah, I'm thinking about myself, because I want to go look at it as a vendor standpoint because of the cold tags. So.
Yeah, I mean, I go to ICAST every year, and thanks to Douglas, they get me there, and I help them with the booth and everything. Going to shows in general, fishing shows, is absolutely epic. Like, you're just there talking with everyone who's loves fishing as much as you. It's like a kid in a candy store. You cannot beat it. So regardless of where, like, I think that's a great, I think he said it was in, I forget when he said it was.
End of January.
End of January? Okay. Like, that's coming up. Like, you know, it's awesome.
And that's another thing, like when it comes to prepping for tournaments. You have to really sit down and have a schedule of, okay, these are my days for my tournaments. Okay, I have to have 2 or 3 days committed to this partner. I got this show and that show. And it's pretty much a full-time job on top of your full-time job.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm fortunate to have a job that allows me to do that pretty well. You know, but it is like, unfortunately, while I was saying that, I can't make it to that show, even though I would love to go. Because I'll be, you know, I leave for Kissimmee, I'll leave January 20th, because it's the first time I'm going down there. I want like 11, 12 days just to get a lay of the land and everything.
Yeah.
But people don't realize how much the schedule eats time, like so much time, you know? I mean, it's pretty intense. I mean, there's some good, like during the summer, there's actually a pretty good break in the open schedule. But if you factor in all of the pre-fishing, then it becomes like a little daunting. You're like, okay, I mean, some people don't spend 10 days, some people spend 4. But for me, with as much as I have invested, I put 10 days before every tournament at least. Because
so you're looking at 90 days 90 days for the season.
I'm looking at more than 90 days.
Right.
I'm looking at, it would be like a little more. It'd be like over 100, because then you factor in.
When you say 10 days, you're saying 10 days prior to the tournament?
Prior.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're talking 10 days of practice.
So it's like 12, hopefully 13 days before.
But you do plan on 13.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, like the James River, an hour and a half from here. I live in Charlottesville, Virginia currently. The James River, I'll be fishing periodically. So like, I'll be fishing quite a bit, like periodically. So I'm not going to, maybe won't go 10 days before on this one, because I'm here. Oneida, I'll be up there in Cooperstown and the Finger Lakes guiding. So I'm not going to go to Oneida 10 days before necessarily because I'm there and I'm going to be putting time in. But like, Kissimmee, Cherokee, Upper Chesapeake's pretty close to me, but I may still spend 10 days. Like I need to spend that time just because I've invested so much time, money. There's no reason to skimp on 2-3 days of learning that lake.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's the time commitment's obscene, and my girlfriend doesn't love it, but she loves it enough that she's okay with it. But that's like 115 days away. Like it's a lot, but
yeah. But hey, you can always tell her, "Come on with me."
I know, it's true. Although I don't know if she likes slumming it in the back of a pickup truck.
Yeah, you're gonna air. Yeah, you need to get rid of that pickup truck.
I gotta get a camper.
Nah, Airbnb is the way to go, man.
It is. You're really right.
But hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, it's true.
So, is there anything that you think would put you, because you do a lot of studying.
I do a lot of work.
You do a lot of map study. You do a lot of, internet searching and stuff like that. Is there anything you do prior to that you could think of?
Prior to like an internet search, like
yeah. Do you have the old-fashioned paper maps you look at?
I don't really look at paper maps that much. I know a lot of guys do. I stay away from that. I guess the only other thing before that would be because if you think about it, like when I saw the schedule, I immediately zoned in on Kissimmee, and the first thing I do is Google search immediately. Okay. Not necessarily on what it is, but just mapping all that stuff that I was talking about prior. But I do that, and then the calls with people that I trust to talk to, and just getting mentally prepared. That's pretty much it. I don't do much before that. That's like my primary thing. And I'll get on I'll go sit in my boat. I rent a little warehouse like 20 minutes from my house for super cheap, which is awesome. And I'll sit in there and I'll go on my boat mat. Like I'll go on Garmin and Humminbird, and I'll do some searching on there just because that's super familiar. And that's what I'll be looking at when I get down there. So I'll pull my laptop and computer on the middle, right next to me when I sit in the driver's seat of my Phoenix, and I'll just compare the Google Earth with the map, active captain, the whole thing. So I'll have everything right there. And I usually spend a solid 5-6 hours just doing that whole transition from graph to computer. But yeah, to answer your question, I always start on the computer pretty much.
Okay, cool. All right. So if you were to give a new person who is going to travel, maybe not all 9 opens, but to travel for an away tournament for 3-4 days, do you have any quick tips you can give them?
As far as being on that body of water
or just prep, just from prep to tournament?
Yeah. Depending on where you're going, just do that preliminary research. Just do it. It's super. It gets you excited to go. So just research a little bit, pack accordingly, make sure that everything's dialed in from truck, trailer, tackle, like I had said prior, and try not to get overwhelmed with the size of the body of water you're on. A lot of people, and I do it all the time still, I got to Grand Lake and I was like, oh my goodness. It's not giant, but it's pretty damn big. So when you get to that body of water, just do yourself a favor and spend one day in a section of the lake or a small lake in a chain or whatever it is, and just try to figure that out. Just that one section that you've sort of cut off prior to your trip. So if you're going to Oneida, right, You can say, I'm only fishing from Oneida Shores to halfway to, what's not Brewerton, the other bridge all the way down from Oneida Shores.
Okay.
Yeah, so just cut Oneida Lake in half. Just immediately
Canastota.
What?
Constantia, I think.
Yes. So immediately cut Oneida Lake in half and just fish it. Just fish it and try to zone in on what exactly you want to do. Because remember, as you said, fish strength, and see what you come up with based on your prior research and just a day on the water, and try not to think too much. Like I do this all the time, and I tell myself, because so much of this game is mental, don't overthink it. And that's a really helpful way to not overthinking it is cutting tons of water out immediately. Now, if you need to resort to go fish that water, that's fine. But try to spend a full day just dialing in the water that you've mapped off for you to cover. So that's my biggest tip, I would say.
Okay.
I think it's very helpful. And at the same time, you can hurt yourself by doing that, because then you're eliminating stuff that you may have. But it's 6 to 1, half dozen to the other. Like, you're gonna fish that anyway. Just try not to think about it that day. Try not to over, stimulate, because then you're forgetting certain things, or you're reeling too fast during practice, and you're missing key areas that you really wanted to find, but you went over. Like, how many times do you hear about people going through an area, not catching a fish, and then someone else comes with slightly different techniques, slower presentation, and hammers on them?
Bro, it never happens.
Right, never happens.
Dude, I catch them all, man.
Dude, and that happens because of what happened in practice.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's the practice that screws you, because you're like, no, there weren't any fish there, I don't want to spend too much time there. Whereas the other guy sort of zoned in a little bit better, figured the bite out in practice, and was confident in that spot or area during the tournament, where his confidence was at an 8 out of 10, yours was at like a 4 out of 10. So you rolled over the fish that were there. So that all happens in practice. So.
Yeah, a couple examples of that was Ike Anelli's first professional tournament he won up on Champlain.
What? Yeah, remind me of what you're talking about.
The birds. He saw the birds and he fished it, and he ended up winning the tournament.
Exactly.
Another one is Randy Howell when he won the Classic.
Yep.
He didn't fish that spot.
No, and that's a great point. That's another discussion topic, is like, you got to remember, like, no matter the tournament, it could be the Bass Pro US Open that Tucker Smith just won, or it could be the biggest tournament of your life, whatever that may be. It could be a small club tournament for a 15-year-old, or it could be the Classic. Instincts are huge, and I think a lot of people, because of the pressure of that tournament that it puts on you mentally, like, they forget about just following your instincts and fishing. Just fishing. Like, I can't tell you how many times, I've been just so lost in a local tournament here in Virginia, and I'm just like, okay, let's just relax, pretend you're in New York. What would you do? And I go and I catch a 5, a 4, and a 3, and I finish second. I'm like, okay, I didn't need to overthink it. Yeah. So I think the pressure gets to a lot of people, even in pre-fishing, because you think, okay, I only have 5 more days to figure this out. Like, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this. Just slow down, calm down, and fish.
Yeah, but that all starts with the prep leading up to the practice and the tournament.
Exactly, and that's
so it ties in.
Yeah, it all ties in, because I mean, like I said, the more time, the more you're not thinking about what you need or don't have, or like forgot to pack, or I don't have enough Senkos. Oh no, like whatever it is, like you've solved that prior to your trip. Like I said in the beginning, you want to take out as many variables as possible before you get there. You want all the variables out of the way, because when you break down, you're stressing internally about, how much is this going to cost? What is this going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And then when you get to the event, may not be thinking about it actively, but you've had stress. Like, right. You don't need that. And it's super avoidable. I mean, stuff happens even when you do prep, but try to avoid that stress or overthinking or all that avoidable stuff prior to getting to the tournament. Those are my two advice. Try to avoid avoidable stuff, and section off a body of, if it's overwhelming, section it off and just fish, and
which is all done prior to getting to the body of water.
Exactly.
So I want to we're getting close to an hour. I want to say thanks to Kyle for coming on and agreeing to talk to us about preparation for a multi-day tournament. I want to thank everybody that watched, and as we my wife and I usually do, we end up closing off with thank you very much for coming. Always be safe on the water. Wear your life vest, sunscreen, and stuff like that. But hey, Kyle, one more question.
Yeah.
My wife usually asks, what's your favorite homemade cookie?
That's a really good question. What did she say?
Is it oatmeal raisin?
I was thinking oatmeal raisin. Gosh, that's a good one. Yeah, it is oatmeal raisin, actually, now that I think about it, because it's chocolate chip, oatmeal raisin, or like a butter cookie. Gotta be oatmeal raisin.
Bro, I know you haven't seen much of the show.
Yeah.
Look at that freaking cookie, bro.
That's giant.
Yeah, it's like.
Where'd you get? Is that homemade?
Yeah, my wife does it.
Damn, I gotta come over. I gotta come over.
Hey.
I gotta get some action on cookies. Jesus.
Yeah, we'll have to do a couple shows together out on the lake.
Yeah, let's go to Cayuga. I'm
all right, man. So everybody take care. Thanks, Kyle. Kyle, stick with me here, and we'll talk a minute after the show. And everybody take care. Be safe. See you next week. And that's about it, I think. Yeah. I'm going to queue up this exit video, and we'll go from there.
Thanks for having me.
All right, man.